Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear young scientists participating in the Lindau Meeting 2014. This is a very warm welcome in the name of the Global Young Academy, an Academy of Sciences that we want to present to you this evening, as we believe that excellent young scientists like you are could be the future members of our Academy. So, what is the Global Young Academy? We are, academies of sciences are normally believed to be for very established and senior people, but for a couple of years there are also young academies, and we are an academy of sciences for young scientists a little bit older than you, 3 to 10 years beyond the PhD, who joined together and formed the Global Young Academies a couple of years ago. Selection criteria are similar to the ones of the Lindau meeting. It's academic excellence, but also commitment to service, to reach out to societies. What do? We support young scientists in their career development and independence, and actually the term of membership, 5 years, is a period in which they can develop into the science leaders of the future. We engage in interdisciplinary, international and intergenerational dialogue, and you will hear examples for this later on. We try to close the gap between science in developed countries and science in developing countries, and have a couple of projects for this. And we very much believe in the need to motivate younger scientists and pupils to engage in science and to reach out to society and to policymakers. How do we do this? Well, first of all, we established this network of 200 members from all over the world, currently from 58 countries. We draft own statements and position papers, but we also contribute to reports and statements drafted by senior academies. We increasingly are invited to give advice to very senior institutions. For example, last year, members of the Global Young Academy were invited to all the regional meetings of the Global Research Council and had the chance to speak out on behalf of young scientists to this very important forum. And as you see on this picture, two of our members were even invited to speak at the inaugural meeting of the Science Advisory Board to the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Here you see him with our member Shirin El Agroudi from Egypt. Our members develop projects and activities. You will hear about this later on. And we do own research studies, for example, the Global State of Young Scientists Precursor Study, and we support the establishment of national young academies. We have an office based in Berlin, and I'm the managing director of this office, Heidi Wedel. Let me now present two of our members who were ready to join us here in Lindau. First, you will hear Mark Reuss. He is the group leader of the Laboratory of Molecular Evolution at the Department of Chemistry of the University of Basel, and he's very much engaged in science outreach, has wonderful initiatives, and he won the Science Slam in Basel last year. Then we will hear Rada Bassioni from Egypt. She has been a Lindau participant 2 years ago, was nominated for the Global Young Academy, joined us last year, and has already been elected to our executive committee this year, and she just was awarded the highest recognition for science in Egypt, the State Award for Chemistry. So, Mark, please, the floor is yours.
When I was 6 years old, my teacher at school announced dramatically that we would do an experiment. We all looked at her thinking, what exactly is an experiment? And she proceeded to get some water, and to put it in a bowl like this one, and asked us the question, will the heat of the sun make the water disappear? Now, to a 6-year-old, this sounds totally outrageous. Half of the class said, never, it'll never happen. How can things disappear? Some of us, who were a bit more experienced perhaps, rebellious, it can happen, said, yes, I think it might disappear. And this was a Friday evening, and the first experiment lasted 3 days. We had to wait for the whole weekend until Monday morning to look whether the water was still there. And so on Monday morning, we all rushed into the classroom excitedly to look at the bowl. And what had happened? The water was still there. I was distraught. I was on the losing team. The winners, the smug ones who went around going, aha, I told you, could not be convinced by any means that in fact they might have been wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, dear young scientists, my name is Mark Cruz. I'm at the University of Basel. Thankfully, my passion for science did not evaporate like the water should have done. I'm still engaged in science. I love science. And I'm not here this evening to talk about my science, which is in molecular evolution, in enzymes, antibiotic resistance, but rather I'm going to talk about science in general and about science in society. And in specific, I'm going to speak about some of the activities we've been carrying out in the past, I've been involved in the past 2 or 3 years since I was elected in the Global Young Academy. So I'll start by explaining to you how I got involved in the Global Young Academy. In 2011, this man, Bruce Albert, visited Basel and gave an amazing lecture. Some of you may know Bruce Albert. He was the editor of Science magazine. He was the president of the American Academy of Sciences. He is famous amongst biologists for having written a book, The Molecular Biology of the Cell. I see a few nods in the front here. So Bruce Albert spoke about the American Academy of Sciences and explained how they're trying to change the curriculum at schools in the US. And in specific, he told us about this experiment that they designed for 6-year-olds. The experiment is quite simple. You give white socks to children, you let them walk around outside, and then when they come in, you give them a cheap microscope, just $1 or $2, to have a look at what the white socks have picked up. And children love to look at that, and look at this, and look at the other. And then the teacher is meant to ask, do you see any seeds? And then some children start saying, this looks like a seed. And the teacher then says, well, can you separate the dirt from the seeds? And the seeds sometimes look more regular, and the dirt just looks like dirt. And so they make 2 piles of seeds and dirt. And then the teacher asks, yes, but how do you know that they're seeds? Well, they look like seeds, don't they? Yes, but how do you know? And given him enough encouragement, even a 6-year-old will come up with a solution. You plant the seeds and see if the plant grows. And that is an experiment that you can do with the 6-year-old. I was amazed by this simple notion of teaching science to children. Bruce Alberts also mentioned in passing the Young Academy movement, and I'll read out to you just a few lines of an editorial he wrote in Science magazine, I have often argued on this page that scientists need to do more than simply advance their individual research projects. Maintaining excellence in the global scientific enterprise will require constant adjustments to policies and programs. In addition, much more outreach by scientists will be needed to make science better understood by the general public and by governments. So here is a summary of a worldview. Science is important and scientists should engage with society. And this is a message that I feel very strongly and one that the Global Young Academy encourages. And I would like to encourage you to apply to the Global Young Academy and at least to engage with society and outreach programs because you are important to the world. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you some of the things that I've been involved in the past couple of years. So I applied to the Global Young Academy based on Bruce Albert's visionary speech. And the first meeting that I attended was in South Africa, Johannesburg. There I am. You can see my bald head right there. And here is Bruce Alberts. You can see his white hair right here. And here is an amazing group of young academicians of the Global Young Academy who are all passionate about the role of science in creating a better world. One of the first things that I was a little bit involved in was in statements. So what is a statement? A statement is an opinion given by a body, a consensus where we all debated different issues that involve science and then announce it to the world. And this is a statement, came out 2012, on grant application mechanisms. And, for example, we gave 10 points that funding bodies should try to implement based on our opinion as young scientists who are writing grant applications all the time. Point number 2 was structure the submission process for minimal complexity. This is obvious, but seldom implemented. In fact, grant-giving bodies often seem to think that we shouldn't aspire to a Nobel Prize in Physiology of Medicine. We should aspire to the Nobel Prize of Literature instead when writing our grant applications. No, we believe that the process should be less complex than it is. One big study that has gone on for 2 or 3 years is the Global State of Young Scientists here, which was a big project collecting opinions of young scientists throughout the world, asking for their problems. And some of the issues that were identified was lack of support and mentorship, which is essential in advancing people's careers, little transparency in allocating positions and grants, and work-life imbalance. Some of the regional disparities that were identified were quite amusing. In North Africa and the Middle East, tragically, young scientists are worried about war, about political problems in the country, instability. In Germany, young scientists tend to be worried about keeping a job. There are regional disparities, but some of the issues are common throughout the world, wherever you are. This is available on our website as a PDF. There are also some copies that we've left over there, together with some information of the Global Young Academy. Does that make an impact? Well, we have been often in the media, for instance, in Nature and Science. They notice extreme workloads plague scientists at the start of their careers. More than 50 hours a week is very normal amongst the people interviewed. Curiously, very little of that time actually was on the bench doing research. A lot of it was with administration, teaching, and so forth. And that was pinpointed as a potential problem. but the information is there on a preliminary emerging global picture of early career scientists. Very recently, as a biologist who's interested in synthetic biology, I've participated in a collaboration with senior academies around the world. So the Inter-Academy Partnership, IAP, Statement on Synthetic Biology, was published just a few months ago, where we spoke, for instance, about the issues of xenobiology. Some of you may know about it. There's big discussions, for instance, on using non-natural chemistry, for instance, synthetic bases of DNA to make engineered organisms, and what does that mean for the world? The consensus there was it is vital that global policy does not hinder that basic science. It should be supported, especially amongst young scientists, and the scientific community should engage with society about such issues. So, speak about social concerns. One that is close to my heart was the Sandton Declaration on Sustainability, and that essentially is addressing scientists themselves, encouraging scientists to engage with society, for instance, with civil society and decision makers. To say that public engagement and outreach activities are important, and that scientific literacy, not just for scientists, but for everybody in society, whether they're politicians or lawyers, everybody should be scientifically literate. Do we walk the walk as well as talk the talk? Well, reaching science outreach can be fun. I encourage you to do it. These are some snapshots of one of the members, Dr. Regina So, in South Africa, showing at the bottom picture how to make polymers in schools. Kids love to see that and love to work in a lab. I actively encourage you to engage with outreach activities. Here, Ranjini showing children how matter has different forms of matter. For instance, cream. What is a solid? What is a liquid? What is a cream? And at the bottom, we purified DNA, and children love to wear a lab coat and see that DNA forms white strings in the laboratory. Not just children, but adults also are interested in science, whether they're scientists or not. And this was an initiative by the Cy Bono Center in Johannesburg called Speak to a Scientist. So they invite a scientist about once a month simply to talk about science. Here I gave a talk, The Amazing Story of Evolution, featuring molecules, bugs, elephants, and vaccines. And we designed, with Rob Jenkins, one of the other Academy members, we designed a game to illustrate how evolution works live by writing words on cardboards and passing them down the room. This has been very successful, lots of fun, and there'll be in the autumn an online version of the game as well for everybody to try out. Science is important. We heard in the opening speech on Sunday that science should be funded because it has good practical implications. You see this all around. You are here because communication has been advanced by science and technology. 2,000 years ago, it took around 11 days at the height of the Roman Empire to send a message from here to Rome. If you wanted an answer, you had to wait another 11 days. Emails now are instantaneous. This year we commemorate the 150th anniversary of the death of a great medic, Semmelweis, who pointed out that washing your hands saved lives. Paradoxically, Semmelweis was ignored by many doctors. They said, how can this be? You know, I am a gentleman. I cannot spread death with my hands. There was no theoretical framework actually to understand what Semmelweis had observed himself. And it took years before Pasteur and the Nobel Prize Robert Koch explained why that was so effective. Science has made great advances, and science is worth communicating to the general public. You are very good role models to the world. You should actually speak out more than you do. I'm always intrigued by people who say, but scientists are so arrogant, they know everything. Well, sometimes we make mistakes. The medics who ignored Semmelweis were not being scientific. However, science gives you a framework for explaining the world with evidence, with facts. And this is something that should be encouraged throughout. There is no better role model than yourself. And in fact, in my experience, few people are as doubtful as scientists. We embrace ignorance. We often say, well, I don't know how this works, but I know how to find out. And that is something to be encouraged. I started my talk by mentioning this experiment that went perhaps horribly wrong. In retrospect, I know that control should have been done. Perhaps one with a closed lid. Perhaps we should have measured the extent of evaporation. It took me many years to learn that, but we can teach that by actively showing people what we do all the time. I will also finish with one of the great role models of mine, showing a picture of a commemoration of his life and ideas. He would have been 100 years old this year, and he was a great person for public communication of science. His name was Max Perutz, Nobel Prize 1962. In Cambridge, UK, you can see this plaque. In science, truth always wins. Perhaps I was not on the losing team after all. Thank you. And now, Rada is going to say a few words about her experience in the Global Young Academy as well.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be here with you tonight, representing one of the most distinguished, most exciting communities among young scientists, the Global Young Academy. I am a member since last year and have been elected this year in the executive committee of that renowned organization. Tonight, I would like to share with you my modest experience. I started right here, where we are now. In 2012, I was selected by the German Academic Exchange Service, the AAD, to represent Egypt for the first time in the Lindau Nobel Laureate Meetings. Exchange of knowledge and expertise was my primary drive to seek this chance of meeting the elite. I always felt that there is a need for active connections between young scientists and distinguished professors, which not only enrich the knowledge, but also add another dimension to the existing systems of continuing education programs, lectures, and research. I personally believe that this visit envisages promotion of academic interaction by facilitating the dissemination of knowledge through the expertise of experienced and knowledgeable, distinguished professors to integrate their rich experience with young professionals. At that time, I was looking forward to creative discussions, raising ideas for innovation beyond limits. Science is about communication, a statement which is so true. So please, make full use of this opportunity given to you. Through this interaction, I was further guided to apply for the Global Young Academy. At that time, that organization was still new to me. I did my homework and studied the provided website well. Indeed, there was an opportunity I should not miss, I said to myself. I would like to expand my sincere thanks to Dr. Turner and Professor Fricke for their recommendation. With that step, they opened up for me a dimension of career development I was not aware of. When I got accepted to the Global Young Academy and attended my first annual general meeting in Halle, Germany in 2013, I realized that that was exactly what I was looking for. I was motivated to mingle even more with scientists from all over the world, from different disciplines. A new dimension of collaborations with researchers from different parts of the globe opened up for me, and I greatly benefit from these interactions. This type of approach promises rapid advances in research through open sharing of research information at all stages of the research process. Seeking and employing methods to successfully support this concept is a passion of mine that mirrors the passion I have to my field. No doubt, being part of that community rewarded me with a lot of skills, social, cultural, and scientific. So my message to the young scientists among you tonight is, you have choices. No matter what you think you can do or cannot do, you have a choice. Be different. Being different means being willing to take a chance, not being afraid to challenge the norm, making your own track, not just following the well-known path, being the person that you would like to be. To many, success means to come suddenly. When you observe others, what they have achieved, you usually don't appreciate what it has taken them to reach there. But if you take the time to truly think about it, you will find that success is usually only a small step away. Let me conclude my talk by congratulating all of the young scientists among you tonight, by accomplishing the first step to success, by being here with the most distinguished professors on the globe. Let me congratulate you for being different, being special, and let me invite you to continue a journey with us, the Global Young Academy. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your patience. There's some time left for questions. Should you have any questions to the Global Young Academy, this is the time. You have microphones there. Unfortunately, I can't see you very well, but if you want to ask a question, please just proceed to the microphone. You're also free to address us after this meeting in the foyer. There is some information on the Global Young Academy. We have brought some flyers which you can study, where you see different programs from academies, including the Global Young Academy, and you can meet our two members after this meeting. Okay. Thank you.
So before we all go, I'd like to conclude this session by asking you all to stand. Okay. Rada has congratulated you for being here. I would also like to encourage you to speak to your families, to your neighbors, to spread the word that science is good. And I'd like you to turn to your neighbors and shake their hands and congratulate them for being part of this global young community. Thank you very much. Good night.